previously as LDS history. And anti-Mormons continue to use this as a thorn in the LDS side in attempting to vilify the LDS people. A lot of these critics are Christians themselves, and if the issue was turned on their own history, exposing their own history, the same vilification tactics would make them sound just as bad. Many LDS thought white and black in the Book of Mormon was racial skin colors. However, recent studies show it actually is ancient garment color symbolism. Anciently, garments were made out of animal skins, and if spotted or blackened, it meant that you were racking up sins. Whitened meant you were washed clean by Christ's atonement. LDS Apostle Bruce Harvey McConkie in 1978 on the black issue, quote, "We spoke with a limited understanding and without the light and knowledge that now has come into the world," end of quote. Now this is expected of prophets and apostles who, like Paul of the New Testament, says that, in speaking of prophecies and as great as the spiritual gifts are, that they know in part, but when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 8 through 13. Atheists look for these types of issues to say there's no God. Like when John mistakes a prophet as God in Revelation chapter 22 verses 8 through 9. He's about ready to bow down and worship this bright angelic personage that's been speaking first person as if he was God. He's about ready to bow down and worship him, and the bright angelic being says, "Hey, I want thy servants the prophets worship God instead." Psalms also to be taken out of the Bible, even though it's still in the Bible, despite what David did. Again, the point is that prophets aren't perfect, apostles and prophets aren't perfect, and if anti-Mormon Christians who are Christians want to vilify the LDS prophets and apostles for their weaknesses and imperfections and notions that aren't, and speculations and assumptions that aren't correct, or appear, or could be twisted and misinterpreted, or appear to be not correct. What would happen if the Bible that these anti-Mormon Christians claim to believe in was put under the same test? What David did. I mean, he was a polygamist. He ran around naked. He fragged one of his soldiers to get at that soldier's girl so that he could have her for his own. So he sent him into battle and fragged him so that he'd get killed, so that he could get the girl. So that's why he says that he's on his way to hell, but that the Messiah will one day deliver him from hell. But the Psalms are still used, despite what David did and his weaknesses. The Psalms is a big part of the Old Testament. Because of what he did, are we to take out the Psalms? Well, that's what critics would have us do with LDS prophets and apostles. Their different sayings and comments that they've made, speculative comments they've made in different issues, they would have us believe that they're false prophets. It's a double standard. In other words, it's okay for the Bible prophets to be guilty of all kinds of crimes. Moses can kill an Egyptian and hide his body in the sand and then write a big part of the Old Testament, but Saul, who became Paul, wrote most of the New Testament and a lot of the letters, but he was an accessory to Christians being martyred. But we still honor Paul and his writings in the New Testament. So that's the whole point, is it's a double standard that these anti-Mormon Christians are placing on LDS prophets and apostles by coming up with these obscure quotes that they mine for. They look through all these old books and make issues and big deals out of these different obscure quotes that they blow out of proportion their historical setting when they should be considered in their own historical setting. The same issues are in the Bible and in historic Christianity. LDS have had to do what historic Christianity did with regards to the pre-existence doctrine. Many, including Christ's disciples, held the false notion that the condition someone was born into, John 9:2, case in point, the man that was born blind, reflected their premortal sins. These types of notions were passed down until 553 AD during the Council of Constantinople, when they sought to discourage by anathema those who accepted the notion that dark skins reflected premortal sins. So the 553 AD Christian Council of Constantinople about the preexistence and blacks is the same issue and a historical case that could be used against the Christians as they do in bringing up these different passages in the Book of Mormon, which we are now finding are symbolical of ritualistic ancient garment colored symbolism and do not actually mean actual racial skin colors as traditionally believed in the LDS Church. Same situation happened in historic Christianity, so Christians should be more fair in their presentations of Mormonism, or they're going to find that they're inadvertently attacking themselves, and they would have to come up with their own answers to their own issues against the LDS Church by coming up with the same type of answers to issues that an atheist or early anti-Christian might bring up against their own historical writings, what can be found in their own historical roots and own history. Communist atheists, not mentioning that hundreds of millions were murdered in China and 50 million by Stalin, will vilify USA by pointing out how Christians mistreated, murdered, raped, kidnapped, beat, whipped, enslaved blacks during slavery. Also, writings of Frederick Douglass, April 28th, 1845, writing in Lynn, Massachusetts. He's writing about Christianity, and if we were to consider what he wrote, this could be used to make Christians sound like they have disturbing doctrines too. Recent studies on ancient garment-colored symbolism sheds light on the meaning of such Book of Mormon passages about becoming white and delightsome, later justifying the clarification when changes were made. They were made as early as 1840 by Joseph Smith, who changed it to pure and delightsome, but then later, for some reason, later copies of the Book of Mormon, when they were published, left that change out until the 1980s. Pure and delightsome. Now this is an issue that a lot of critics make a big deal out of. Oh, there's a change in the Book of Mormon. And a lot of ones that bring up these changes are Christians. And if the Bible was placed underneath the same tactics that they use against the Book of Mormon, would make the Bible that they claim to believe in false. It's a double standard that they use. But to get back to this issue about white and delightsome and pure and delightsome, where their skins would be whitened in the last days in front of God's judgment bar. Now this is not actual skin colors, but ancient ritualistic garment-colored symbolism. Or another part of in the Book of Mormon says how that there's a skin of blackness came upon the wicked. Anciently, garments were made out of animal skins. Thus, to have your skins blackened or whitened was symbolic of either being washed spotless of sins or spotted to black skin. In medieval mystery plays, tanners would play demons because they tan animal skins to darker colors. That's why they're called tanners. Now, it wouldn't be fair to vilify an anti-Mormon couple, Gerald and Sandra Tanner, by pointing out that tanners played demons in old mystery plays. That wouldn't be fair. That'd be a play on words. Fact is that the tanners, because this is a job description now. The tanners would play demons because they tan animal skins to darker colors, and that's why they played that part in old mystery plays that acted out biblical themes during the Middle Ages and during those time frames.